The MTR chairman suggests government subsidies for long-distance passengers. In the UK, the police identify the man who carried out that deadly attack outside Parliament. And Trump puts Obamacare to a make-or-break vote.
Good evening. The chairman of the MTR Corporation says the government should sell some of its stake in the railway operator. Frederick Ma says the authorities could then use the money to set up a fund to subsidize long-distance public transport passengers. Winna Wong reports.
There was little change to the MTR's fare adjustment mechanism. This was revealed last week after the government and the rail operator spent months reviewing the system. The result was disappointing to many, especially since there has long been public outcry that MTR fares have been going up since 2010, even though the railway company has been enjoying profits each year. Now people are waiting to see if the pattern continues when the MTR Corporation announces fare adjustments on Monday. Speaking to TVB, Frederick Ma, chairman of the railway giant, reiterated that authorities had tried their best to balance rising costs and the public's demands. He also raised his own suggestion. I think the government could sell 25% out of the stakes it holds, he said. Ma said the government could then set up a fund and collect interest from that. Let's say the rate of return is 3.5%. That's around $2 billion a year, he said. That money could then be used to subsidize fare costs for long-distance public transport passengers. Ma added this would not affect the government's influence in the MTRC, since it would still hold a more than 50% stake in the rail operator. The government currently holds an about 76% stake in the MTRC. The chairman said as a listed company, it's difficult for the MTRC to share profits with the masses under the current system, since it's difficult to expect what small shareholders will allow. He said their concerns are different from the general public. Ma once suggested using the government's annual dividend to subsidize fare costs. He mentioned Chief Executive candidate Carrie Lam also shared this view during her campaign for the top job. Winna Wong, TVB News.
More election committee sectors have indicated they will vote as one bloc for Carrie Lam in Sunday's CE election. Woo Kwa-King, meanwhile, has secured a vote from the pan-Democratic camp that intends to rally behind John Tsang. Tsang has managed to get the backing of the Medical Council's leader, one of the few from the pro-establishment side to openly support him. Adam Shu reports.
It was John Tsang's last foray into the communities before Sunday's election, and he decided to take it to a new height on an open-top double-decker. The bus tour began in Adelaide Chow and stopped in Corrie Bay and Causeway Bay, where he was mobbed by selfie seekers and greeted with best wishes for Sunday's vote. Earlier today, a senior pro-establishment politician slammed Tsang for allegedly creating the impression that he had won Beijing's blessing by playing up President Xi Jinping's handshake with him when he was the financial secretary.
This is election time, and I'm not surprised whatever tactics people are using to make sure that their preferred candidate would win more votes. The only surprise that I have that it has come so late.
Little surprise for Carrie Lam, who today was assured that she would reap all 60 votes from the agricultural and fisheries sector. Its election committee members said they agree that Lam meets all Beijing's criteria for the city's next leader, also promising to go all in for the former chief secretary for administration was the catering sector with its 17 votes. It's been an uphill battle for Woo Kwa-King, but the retired judge got some good news today. Chong Chan-Yao, an EC member from the social welfare sector, has vowed to vote for the retired judge, saying Woo's ideas on retirement protection were the closest to his. That's despite most of the sector's members pledging to back John Tsang in Sunday's race, following the pack of the pan-democratic camp in the EC. Adam Xu, TVB News.
And we continue our series of interviews with the CE candidates. Yesterday, we heard from candidate number 1, John Tsang. And we'll have more on Wu Kwa-king tomorrow. Tonight, we focus on candidate number 2, Carrie Lam. Although seen as a favorite of Beijing, she's been lagging behind in local opinion polls. But she stressed it's her policies that really matter. Elmi Lung reports.
Since announcing her chief executive bid, Carrie Lam has been playing catch-up in the popularity race. Public debate performances did little to boost her opinion poll ratings. I have a strong sense people react to candidates not by who they are, but what they stand for. I represent the pro-establishment side, Mr. Leung's current administration, and someone the central government trusts. And what does she think of the public reception for rival John Tsang? Carrie Lam said her former colleague's PR work has been well executed, but now that Hong Kong is at a crossroads, the city needs a chief executive with heart, ability, and is willing to take responsibility. If elected but without high popularity, will she face a more divided Hong Kong? I'm not defending myself, she said, but many people showed their support, so it's not all one-sided. Despite being the last contender to roll out a full election manifesto, Lam spoke rather fondly of it. The only female contestant described her platform as well-developed, but expressed disappointments that proposed policies were not made a focus in this election. She wants to build affordable starter homes for the middle class while creating jobs in different sectors and leaving no small issues untouched. She thinks it's best to first tackle livelihood issues before approaching the more difficult topics like political reform. That's contrary to what her critics argue, that politics must first be addressed to mend a torn society. Under the current political climate, how easy is it to discuss community issues with the people? Lam said she'll first start with education policies. If groups can set aside their political differences, I can boldly say our compatibility will reach 80 to 90%, she added. During this campaign, Carrie Lam attempted to present a different, a more lively side of her. She admitted public image building isn't her strength, but will pay closer attention to public perception and raise her political sensitivity. Elmi Long, TVB News.
Leung Chong-ying says the chief executive of Hong Kong must have more than just vision. Using an example of housing 60% of the population in public flats, Leung says that requires a timetable. Otherwise, he says it's just empty talk that's akin to wishing people Kung Hei Fat Choi over the Lunar New Year, as that doesn't really make people richer. Leung also says election committee members shouldn't necessarily vote for the person with the highest popularity. He adds that he was the most popular candidate in the last election, but pan-democratic electors did not back him. The man who plowed his car through a throng of pedestrians in London, then stabbed and killed a policeman before being shot, has been identified as British-born Khalid Massoud. The 52-year-old had been investigated by British intelligence authorities over concerns about violent extremism. Alan Buknia reports.
A former teacher and Muslim convert, Massoud had shown up on the periphery of previous terrorism investigations. But he was not under investigation when he sped across Westminster Bridge, hitting pedestrians with a rented car, then running into the Parliament railings and stabbing a policeman before being shot and killed. 3 pedestrians died. 26-year-old Francisco Lopez was badly injured but survived the attack.
He started to move towards the pedestrian pavement and started to just take out the people that were in front of the car. So literally, when I realized this, the car was literally just about 1 meter away. So I had literally no time to get out of the way.
Following the attack, police raided a house in Birmingham that Massoud had lived in for 5 months last year. 8 people were arrested in various raids on suspicion of preparing terrorist attacks. Sources said Masood had associates with an interest in joining jihadist groups abroad, but Masood did not. He had a string of petty crime convictions, the latest in 2003 for possession of a knife. Islamic State claimed responsibility for the attack, but it's unclear if the extremist group had direct involvement. His former neighbor described Masood as a normal family man with a 5-year-old daughter.
He used to take the child to school in the morning, taking care of his garden outside. I've saw him many times cutting the grass and coming back from shopping.
Last night in London's Trafalgar Square, hundreds gathered to pay tribute to the victims and demonstrate a united strength. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
Now to a gamble at the White House, where President Donald Trump is subjecting his new health care bill to a make-or-break vote.
7 years to the day former President Barack Obama signed his signature health care bill into law, Trump is demanding a make-or-break vote. Such was echoed by the House Speaker, who didn't mince words.
For 7.5 years, we have been promising the American people that we will repeal and replace this broken law because it's collapsing and it's failing families. And tomorrow we're proceeding.
Trump is threatening to leave the Affordable Care Act in place because yesterday's vote had to be scrapped due to not enough support because key questions like this couldn't be answered.
Does this bill actually lower premiums significantly enough to make a real difference for people that are struggling to pay for health care?
Democratic lawmakers insist Trump is trying to smear Obama's legacy at the expense of Americans.
It's going to produce higher costs, higher premiums, more out-of-pocket expenses. It imposes a crushing age tax on older Americans.
I never thought in coming to Congress that I would be voting on legislation that would take away health insurance from 24 million Americans.
That staggering number is why protesters outside the White House were purposely arrested.
24 people are getting arrested today, and they represent the 24 million Americans that will lose health insurance if ACA is repealed.
Elsewhere in the nation's capital, many demonstrated because they just don't know if the Republican plan will be better.
And I might not get to keep the health coverage that I have.
Fear of the unknown also triggered protests in Los Angeles.
If they take it away, my health care is going to go away and I'm going to die. That's plain and simple.
The high-stakes vote will take place later today.
And still to come in our broadcast tonight, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe denies making donations to the head of a nationalist school. In South Korea, a major hurdle cleared in bringing the sunken ferry Sewol back to shore. And tighter regulations over how mainlanders can use union pay cards to buy homes in Hong Kong.